We are finishing up a series of conversations called Everything is a Gift. And we keep pondering this question, what if, in fact, everything is a gift? And so I ran across a couple of articles on a former president and his lifestyle, and it really struck me. He currently lives in a house that is appraised somewhere around $160,000. Former president who has a lot of income, who lives in a house that's currently appraised at about $160,000. It's said that for this president, the armored vehicles that stand outside of his house cost more than his house. When he gathers with his friends, he uses paper plates and Solo cups, and drinks maybe a glass of bargain Chardonnay wine. He shops at Dollar General. Anyone want to guess who it is? There aren't many presidents living still, so you got a pretty good shot at getting it. Josh? Mm-hmm. You know who it is?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter is correct. There was an article in the Washington Post and also on CNBC, and what struck me, I'll try to post those later in the comments, what struck me is that Jimmy Carter said, "I've never had the ambition to be rich." That hit me. I'm not sure exactly why, but I don't think any of us would say, my ambition is to be rich. I don't think any of us would say, yeah, of my top 5 ambitions, I have an ambition to be rich. But it was significant to me that he said out loud that my ambition has not been to be rich. So I thought I would just pause with that. And by the way, presidents from both parties apparently at least don't have the ambition not to be rich that Jimmy Carter does. It noted other presidents in their current lifestyles, including Obama, Bush, Clinton, Obama buying an $8.1 million mansion. I'm not judging him for that. I'm just saying that Jimmy Carter has a different kind of ambition, it seems. God knows his heart, I don't. But I thought I would ask you, what's your ambition? If you had to say what your ambition is, like one of your top ambitions, could you put it into a word? I'll help you out. Is your ambition A, fulfillment? Is it B, some sort of success or achievement? C, is it some sort of impact? And now D will let you fill in the blank. Is it something else in a word or a few words? What is your ambition in life? A, fulfillment. B, some sort of success or achievement. C, some sort of impact. D, is it something else? We have an impact answer from Christy Looper. So what I've seen so far is A and C. I've seen a lot of A and C answers: fulfillment, impact. Jennifer says, I struggle in general to have a huge ambition. Most days, I just want to do the best that I can. I like that answer. I like your other answers too. But ambition is a fickle thing. I think partly that's what struck me about Jimmy Carter's response. He said, I've never had an ambition to be rich. We have a couple, Dave says impact, Michelle says impact. I'm going to welcome up Josh for a minute. I want to hear his comment on this. We're going to mask up because we're going to be sitting next to each other for a second. So Josh, when you think about that word ambition, what comes to mind?
I mostly hear, when I hear ambition, I'm thinking of striving. I'm thinking of chasing, which I think chasing is the word that comes to it. So, when we talk about the ambition to be rich, what is it you're doing? You're chasing that goal. You're chasing that wealth.
Yeah.
In that. For some people, their ambition is to be famous, so they're constantly chasing fame, or they're constantly chasing, some other kind of what they think is going to fulfill them.
I love what you say, because it intersects with what we're saying about Advent, that we're anticipating this God who comes to us where we are, present with us here and now. So it's like God is chasing us. Will we be still to receive that?
Yeah.
As Psalm says, be still and know that I'm God. If we're chasing stuff, maybe we'll miss something that's right in front of us.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, we're going to bring you back in a minute. Josh is going to be coming back and forth. We're trying to be safe. It's an odd thing, but to be safe, this is how we have to do our guest contributors. So, Josh, we're going to invite you back in.
All right.
He's in for a second, and boom, he's out. I think, Josh, that and I might talk to him off camera too, just a little bit. Convo over there in the Ott household is that A, B, and C are interrelated. I think those things are interrelated. I think that's true. I guess what I'm asking you to consider today is this whole idea of ambition, what Josh just said. There is something about our culture and society that says we're not living well if we don't have some strong driving ambition. And a lot of times in our culture and society, we get handed this idea, or we're immersed in this idea that the best kind of ambition is an ambition for more. An ambition, as Josh said, for more power and fame. An ambition for more money, more house, more success, more influence. If we're constantly driven for more, how will we have room in our hearts and lives for Jesus, who says, the first shall be last and the last shall be first? What I want to help you to consider today, and what challenged me this week, is that Jesus wants to transform our ambition. In a world that, especially in America, that is dictated by ambition for more, Jesus wants to transform our hearts and lives toward a different ambition. He says in the Sermon on the Mount that we looked at last week, seek ye first the kingdom of God and God's righteousness, and these other things will be added to you. He's coming to us to try to prepare our hearts and lives so that we will desire the real thing for which we're made. And one of the biggest things that gets in the way of that real thing is fame. Or this just generally, we want to be noticed, we want to be approved by other people, and money. Today we're going to be talking more about the money piece of it, because while I would say in our series, as we've been talking, everything is a gift, money is a gift, but it's right on that line of things that I almost, based on what Jesus says, sometimes I think Jesus is saying money is not a gift. It's a part of the world that isn't as it should be, And you got to handle it with a lot of caution. He talks about money about as much as anything because he sees how it's affecting the world. And yet money can make a huge difference in the world. Our world is filled with economies. It is a world of money in many ways. But money, man, it can really take us off course very quickly from that greater purpose for which we're made. That's why we're talking about stewardship. So really quickly, I just have a couple of stories to hit right next to each other. We'll probably bring Josh back in for a few more comments in a second. One time, Jesus stunned his disciples. In the translation of the Common English Bible in Matthew 25, it's not our focal story for today, but we'll be going a little bit past 10:30 since we got started so late. So if you can hang out with us for a little while longer, I'd really appreciate it. Sorry again for the technological difficulties today. We tried to do the best we could. So in Matthew 19, Jesus' disciples are stunned, it says in the Common English Bible. What happens? There's a moment when a rich young man comes to Jesus and basically asks him, what do I need to do to inherit the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus asks him, how do you do with the commands? Honor your father and mother, love the Lord your God, don't steal, don't cheat, that stuff. Guy says, I've been keeping those since I was a kid. Yeah, I'm good. And Jesus, I think, it's not spoken in the Bible, but I think he looked deep down into his heart. He said, oh, I know what it is. It's money. He says, go sell everything that you have, give it to the poor and follow me. And he goes away dejected because it says he had many things. Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, it's very hard for the rich to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Or literally the kingdom of the heavens, almost suggesting that God is of another dimension, the heavens dimension. It's hard for people to enter that who are rich. He says, truly, I tell you that it is easier for a camel to enter into the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Today, we're not going to say, what's camel? Camel in the eye of the needle. Leave it aside for today. Know this. He's saying it's really hard. And it says, Matthew 19:25, when his disciples heard this, they were stunned. They said, who can be saved then? Who on earth can be saved? This sounds really hard. What you're saying, Jesus, is really hard. And I'm with them. In a minute, we're going to hear a story about a person that Jesus highlights as a person to learn from. And I think, I'm not like her. I got ambition, man. I got ambition for more. I'm like the disciples saying, man, if this is the standard, I don't know if I can get to it. I don't know exactly what he's saying, but while I may not be sure about that, I know this. Sometimes Jesus says things to startle us from our sleep. Sometimes he has to say things that wake us from our slumber. And sometimes we don't want to be woken up from our slumber. Like, when somebody wakes you up, you've been woken up from a good dream. And you're like, no, that was such a great dream. It was like paradise. I just want to go back to sleep. He tries to wake us up out of this thing that we think is the dream. But Jesus is saying, actually, I'm telling you, that thing that you think is a dream is actually closer to a nightmare. And you got to wake up because you're made for something more. I've come to save you for something more. Not just save you from hell, save you from your clinging to everything that you think makes you whole and well and fulfilled. Those things can't make you whole. Only my presence and my grace can. I don't know what exactly he's saying, but I know he wants us to wake up. Let's bring our contributor back and just hear his comments. Josh, what do you hear in that?
I was trying to figure out what I heard. I heard lots of things and kind of took me into different experiences that I've been thinking about lately. But I think that the biggest thing, it's always funny how sometimes the things that you're dreading most or you think are going to be miserable are the ones that you end up enjoying the most. Like one of my coworkers we were talking about a while back, they're pretty well off. They go take vacations like in Mexico and Florida and all that. And one time they used their vacation time to actually go do a mission trip. And after that time of the mission trip, his son came up and said that was the best vacation we've ever had. He was young at the time. And that really struck me because they loved it. They loved every minute of it.
Hang in, Josh, because I'm going to read to you next. And I want Josh to just hang on with us here for a second. The disciples are stunned by what Jesus says in Matthew 19. But now you're going to hear what stuns Jesus about the world in which he became flesh. So the disciples are stunned about what he says, but maybe it's because he's speaking from a different reality. And he knows he needs to wake us up from something that's going on like this. I'm in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verses 38 to 40. So Mark is one account of Jesus' life. There are four of them: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I'm in Mark. Each gospel is split up into chapters. If you have a physical Bible, the chapters are the big numbers, the small numbers are the verses. So I'm in chapter 12, verses 38 through 40. You can look up the verses on BibleGateway.com. You can download a YouVersion app on your phone. It's Bible YouVersion. If you search in the App Store, it's a great app. Here's what Jesus says. As he was teaching, he said, "Watch out for the legal experts." You got to know that chapter 12, leading up to this moment, Jesus has had a bunch of exchanges with the religious authorities of his day. They've been debating. They've been asking him about his authority. They've been asking him about should they pay taxes. And Jesus has been responding with ideas about stewardship and what it means to have allegiance to God first and only. And he gets to this very last moment before he gives us an example of a great steward, a generous person. As he was teaching, he said, "Watch out for the legal experts. They like to walk around in long robes. They want to be greeted with honor in the markets. They long for places of honor in the synagogues and at banquets. They are the ones who cheat widows out of their homes, and to show off, they say long prayers. They will be judged most harshly." It makes me think about what you said, Josh. Before I even got there, you linked not just money, but also power. Mm-hmm. Why? I mean, why did you link those together when you were talking?
I am a very firm believer that everyone in this world is chasing something. Mm-hmm. And even those that are, something is your God. There are, like, you talk about the different Greeks, you talk about the Roman religions, and they have several gods that represent different things. You had gods that represent sun, money, fame, good spirit, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we look at the Greeks, and that was like, man, what an antiquated religion. And it's like, how could they believe that?
Yeah.
And then we miss the ways that we do the exact same thing, and even in today's society. It's just our gods don't have names necessarily. It's almost harder to name what we're chasing. And so
we've got all our gods too.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
We've got our pantheon of
Yeah.
gods.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think, even this, you're talking about not being without a phone for a while. It's like when you remove something that you don't think is a problem and you realize how much of a problem it is.
Hang on to
becomes
that
a problem.
idea, everybody. Hang on to that idea right now, because it's going to factor into something we're going to do to conclude today.
But there's so many things that try to distract us, try to chase us in a different direction.
Yeah.
Other than the way that God is going. And so you're talking about how God's chasing us. I do believe that. And I also believe that he's chasing how we understand it, whereas is bringing heaven back to earth. And so God's running into a direction. He's continually inviting us back in and saying, hey, come and run alongside me.
Yes.
Come and chase the same thing with me. And I promise you won't be disappointed. That was the whole point of him coming back, was saying, hey, like what you're chasing. He realized that the old Levitical way of understanding religion had in itself become a problem.
Yeah.
Because he's challenging these religious leaders because they love money. They love fame. He talks about it in several other places. When you fast, do so privately.
Right.
Why was the reason for that? Is because religious leaders at the time were fasting and
Hey,
just
everyone.
say it, being melodramatic.
Look at me, I'm fasting. Do you see me? I'm fasting.
Exactly.
I'm so miserable.
And it's so funny because it's like even the things that we think are good can sometimes become gods.
That's right.
And so when I linked it with, kind of circling back, linked it with fame and all that, being well known is something that is deep and innate in our human heart. It's something that humans need. We need to be known and understood.
Yeah.
And the extreme of that is fame. The absolute extreme of that is fame. But at the same time, what should be good becomes an entrapment.
Yeah.
So I see not only in fame, but in a bunch of other things that's what they're chasing.
Yeah.
And it's a distraction from what actually could be giving you fulfillment.
That's some wisdom, right? Thanks, man. All right.
Can we buzz off?
Yeah, get out of here.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Josh, man, the Holy Spirit's good. I just sense so much continuity in what's like stirring in you, Josh, and I don't know exactly what Jesus is saying at times, to be honest with you, but sometimes when you put what Jesus says into action, that's when it makes sense. If you try to understand it and then put it into action, you'll probably never get there fully. And that certainly is true of money. It's true of many things that we are called to be stewards of: our bodies, time, money, authority, relationships, you name it. When we start actively putting them in the right place, our heart transformation follows. Jesus says it, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So, to close today, the very next moment that happens after Jesus says that, he accuses the legal experts of basically, as Josh said, using religion to gain more money and to gain more fame. Jesus sat across, this is verse 41, sat across from the collection box for the temple treasury and observed the crowd, how the crowd gave their money. There's a set of commentaries called Sacra Pagina. It's by two guys named Harrington and Donahue Dumark. They brought up this really great insight that there's a Jewish commentary that says there were literally these trumpet-shaped receptacles that people would put their coins into. So when you put the coins into the receptacles, it would make money, which makes sense back in Matthew 6, where Jesus says, when you give money, don't like blow trumpets saying like, I'm giving money, because literally people were putting coins into these trumpet-shaped receptacles. So they would drop a bunch of money in. If you were rich, you would drop these coins in and be like, hey, everybody, I'm just making my donation. Don't worry about it. I'm just making my donation. I've got a big jar of coins here. Yeah, it'll just be a minute. Many rich people were throwing in lots of money. One poor widow came forward and put in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I assure you that this poor widow has put in more than everyone who's been putting money in the treasury. All of them are giving out of their spare change, but she from her hopeless poverty has given everything she had, even what she needed to live on. Everybody's making sounds, clanging their money in. She's got 2 pennies to rub together, and she drops them in. Nobody even notices. It's so small. Jesus sees something else entirely. He sees where her heart is, where her treasure is, what she seeks first, what her ambition is. We asked last week, what does it mean to collect for yourselves treasure in heaven? Jesus says, don't collect for yourself treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal. Instead, collect for yourself treasure in heaven where moths and rust do not destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. What is treasure in heaven? Josh alluded to it. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I know this. When Jesus talks about heaven, he doesn't mean that we're going to go off to some place in the distance. We often say this. It's the reason our church is named what it is, Heaven Earth Church. It doesn't mean that we're going to go off to some distant resort palace where the streets are paved with gold. That's not how Jesus talks about heaven. That's not what going to heaven means. His campaign slogan is, the kingdom of the heavens is near. He prays, Lord, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. At the end of the Bible, the vision is of the city of heaven coming to earth. And Jesus says, behold, I'm making all things new. Jesus is trying to wake us up, as Josh said, to run that race with Jesus, the race to join with God in this great collaboration, to join with our neighbors in this great collaboration, to use everything that we have, everything that we are, all of our gifts, our money, our time, our body, our desires, all that we have and all that we are, to join Jesus in making all things new. And if we're chasing, as Josh says, we'll never know that good race. Jesus sees the heart of this person. I am not like her. I'm not like her. I hope to be more like her. Part of me resists, like, no, Jesus, she needs some money to live on. That's probably true, but he sees something else. He's trying to transform our ambition, friends, to liberate us from this ambition that is not good for our hearts, our minds, our souls, and it's keeping us in chains. So, I said it. I'm going to share something that I'm going to ask you to do in the coming days. It is a stewardship exercise. I challenge you to do this. I've just put it up in the comments. It's a simple exercise where it's going to ask you to put some stakes in the ground with what you're committing to do in 2021. And it's not just with money. Yes, there is a question that says, what are you going to commit to giving to be a good steward of your money in 2021? Ross, are you asking for a percentage? Are you asking for a big sum of money? I'm asking you to pray about how you can act your way into a new ambition. For you, that might be you're going to give $25 next year. It'd be the first time you've ever given money away. For you, it might be $500. Some of you who are been following Jesus for a little longer and you're in a different place, maybe you're in a position to make a bigger commitment. And as I said last week, I don't care if you give it to this church. I care that we all have a chance to run this race with Jesus and be woken up to the best thing there is, which is the kingdom of heaven, which is coming to earth. It's where we're going to spend all of our lives. Now, I said last week, the reality is if we want this church to continue, yeah, we need donations. It is true. We run completely on people's giving. But it's also got other exercises. What are you going to commit to do with your time? I know what mine is going to be. I'm going to make a commitment for myself about what my screen time is going to be a week. And I'm going to monitor that. What are you going to do to be a good steward of your mind is something else the form asks you. What are you going to do to be a good steward of the earth is in there. Maybe you're going to recycle for the first time. Maybe you're going to research things. I don't know. There's another question in there about something I didn't mention. Please take time this week. It is your homework to go through that form and turn it in as a way to grow in this reality that everything is a gift. To enjoy God, know God, and to join with God in this greater purpose to bring the kingdom of the heavens to earth. You're called to that. Jesus wipes out all your sins for that. He gives you the Holy Spirit for that. His very presence with you every day of your life. What a gift. He gives you the promise that nothing can separate you from the love of God in Jesus Christ. He's paved a way for you, for us, to be about this heaven-earth mission.